Hey guys, Virus here. Well, don't look at the drawing, that's not today's topic. Look down here in the corner. Check it out. Here, let me make myself a little bigger. There we go. Anyway, this here bucket of bolts is Tappet. She's my new chat pet or companion or whatever you want to call it. I'm just gonna call her a puppet. She can spout audio clips.
Yes!
And text-to-speech stuff.
Special delivery.
Sebvalas loves Tycoon mode on Fortnite. It's his favorite mode to play.
And all those features are being handled by Mix It Up, but you can use any kind of Twitch bot that controls OBS WebSockets or whatever. Anyway, with the way Tappet's set up though, I can also use her as a more traditional VTuber. She's a little more advanced than those 2-frame PNG tubers I see on Twitch. It's not a perfect setup, but I think she works pretty well, wouldn't you say? And the cool thing is, all the talking animations are controlled completely within OBS. No external software. All you need is the Move plugin, which I will link to in the description below. So in this video, I'm going to give you a tour on how Tappet is put together, so that you too can make your own OBS-powered PNG tuber. Alright, let's take a look behind the curtain here. Here's my OBS setup. And basically, when it comes to Tappet, there are 3 particular scenes. 2 of them, however, are only necessary for the Twitch bot aspects. If you just want the pure, unadulterated VTuber inputs with the chatting animations and whatnot, all you need is right here in the Tappet TTS scene. So if we hop in here, you'll see basically, as my microphone is receiving input, it is automatically switching to various sources. 2 of them are still images, and 2 of them are slideshows that are going really fast to make it look like an animation. This is a sort of makeshift way I got animations to work in OBS, because I've tried using WebMs and animated PNGs and it just ended up flickering a lot, and this is apparently a known bug that they don't plan on fixing, so this was my workaround for that. So let's right click on the audio filters and I'll show you what's under the hood here. Okay, so these filters over here, this is just for volume aspects, so you don't worry about those. Just use whatever you think's good. But the Tappet filters, these are just audio move actions, and sorry, I mean audio move. This one in particular. All right. And don't worry if I'm going too fast. I'm gonna take it all step by step with you, so you can do it on your own. Basically, what happens is, like I said before, as the microphone receives input, all these different filters basically turn on and off various sources over here. So let's get started. First off, before we do anything, first make sure you've got the Move filter installed and restart OBS. Now let's talk about the sprites. Tappet is composed of 5 different sprites. You're gonna need 5 sprites for this, and I'll show you over here what we got here. The first sprite is basically the idle sprite, or the mouth closed. The second sprite will be one where the mouth is slightly open, just like a teeny tiny bit. The third one will be the mouth almost fully open, but not quite. And the fourth one is the mouth completely fully open. The fifth one is just like a more of a shout kind of aspect, to add a bit of vibration to it to make it look like she's shouting. So with the shout, when you animate it, it should be like this. Just go back and forth between. But once you've got all that out of the way here, let's create our new scene in OBS. We're just gonna make a brand spanking new scene, nothing in it. I'm just gonna call it test scene. All right, so we've got nothing in the scene whatsoever. It's just a brand new spanking scene. Don't worry about this audio thing. We're not gonna use this at all. We're gonna make a completely new audio source. First off, let's start by setting up our sprites. What you wanna do first, we're gonna set up 2 images first. I'm gonna call the first one VTube idle. And you want to select the first sprite in here. That'll be the sprite where her mouth is completely closed. This will be the idle sprite. Where's the OK button? Let's resize this. Ooh, there we go. You can select OK, right click, transform, fit to screen. That should center the sprite for you. add another image. VTube, mouth closing. This will be our second sprite where her mouth is almost closed. Once again, right click, transform, fit to screen. Then we're going to set up two slideshows. This one I'm going to call VTube opening, or VTube mouth opening. For the slideshow aspects, we're going to need specific settings to make all this work. Basically, we're going to use the slideshows as makeshift animations. They're only going to be 2 frames, but it should be just enough animation to add a little character to our VTube model. So first, we're going to select stop when not visible, restart when visible for the visibility behavior. The slide mode you can keep to automatic. Transition will be cut. For the time between slides, the lowest setting you can put this at is 50 milliseconds, so that's what we're going to use. That's around 20 frames per second. It's not ideal for complex animations, but for a 2-frame animation, this will work just fine. For the transition speed, I don't think this actually affects anything, considering it's already pretty fast, but we're just going to set it to 0 anyhow. And for this one, the first slideshow is just going to play back once. So let's scroll down here. For the bounding size / aspect ratio, it should be the same size as your source. So the source I'm using here is full HD 1080 by 1920. That is exactly what we have here. That's fine. For the images, you want to select the 3rd and 4th sprites. This is where a tappet is opening her mouth. All right. So basically, when the volume gets to a certain level, it will play this sprite, and if it stays at around that area, it should just simply stay still like that. Make sure it stays visible when the slideshow ends. So make sure this is not selected. Okay, and that's good to go. Then we're going to make our second slideshow. We're going to call this VTube mouth shout. Okay, so for visibility, you also want to set this to stop when not visible, restart when visible. For slide mode, set it to automatic. Transition will be cut once again. Time between slides will be 50 milliseconds once again. Transition will be 0. For playback, you want to keep it on loop because we do want this to loop. Bounding size aspect ratio can stay the same. And for the files, we'll be adding the 4th and 5th sprites. So when you string these together, it'll look like she's screaming. And look at that. That's exactly what we want here. Okay, so right now we have this mess of layers. I'm just going to organize them all so that they're in order of how they open up. All right, now we're going to add a new audio source that will control all the microphone stuff. So just go to audio input capture. I'm going to call this VTube mic. And I'm going to be using my Yeti stereo microphone because that's the mic that I'm using right now. All right. Now, before we do anything, you don't have to do what I'm about to do right here. I'm just going to copy the volume filters from my current mic. So I'm just going to copy these filters, go back to test scene here, paste the filters, and let's right click into filters. And I'm just going to remove all these tappet filters because we're going to start from scratch here. And like I said before, all of these filters are just related to volume for my microphone. So I'm sure you've got your own filters for this kind of thing to make sure your mic audio comes out properly. Just use whatever you're using there. That'll work just fine. You don't want to change anything there. All right, let's start adding the audio filters to get our VTuber animated. First off, if you haven't already done this, be sure to go to the description and download the Move plugin for OBS, install it, and then restart OBS. And then you can come right back here, go to plus here, and you should see a new filter called audio move. This is what we're going to be using. We're going to be using a bunch of these. So I'm going to call this first one VTube idle. This is going to control our idle sprite. We're going to set the meter type to input peak true. Set the easing to 50. For the action, it's going to be source visibility. It's going to be turning sources on and off. So we're going to select our scene now. It's going to be the VTube idle sprite in our test scene. For the threshold action, you want enable under and disable over. We're going to set it to a very low value. I'm going to set it to 2. For these thresholds, there are various pairs you want to keep the same, but you can fiddle with them to find whatever works for your audio setup. These numbers may not work for you, so just feel free to fiddle. Let's set up our next filter here. Another audio move. I'm going to call this one VTube blows start. This is also going to be input peak true, easing at 50 once again. Action to source visibility. The scene is the test scene, and the source will be VTube mouth closing. We're going to set the threshold once again to enable over and disable under. And we'll set this to the same threshold that was in VTube idle. These two should have the same threshold value. No matter how much you fiddle with it, these should be the same, because if they're not, it could cause your sprite to not transition properly, and you'll see some flickering, and you don't want that. The next two filters are going to be for the transitioning between the mouth closing and the mouth opening. So another audio move filter. This will be VTube blows stop. For these next two filters, we're instead going to use the magnitude meter type. This will make the transitions more dynamic, as opposed to input peak true, which relies more on the audio input falling completely to 0. Yeah, stick with magnitude. Set it to 50. For the action, it's going to be source visibility once again. Test scene. The source will be the VTube mouth closing. For the threshold action, this is going to be set to disable over. And we're going to set it to the threshold we want the character's mouth to be fully opening. So in my case, I'm going to set it to 6.5. Our fourth audio move filter will finally have the mouth fully opening. I'm going to call this VTube open start. We're also going to use magnitude here, easing at 50. Source visibility for the action. Scene will be test scene. The source will be mouth opening. And we're going to set this to enable over and disable under. We're going to set it to the same threshold value as VTube close top, which was 6.5. Be careful when you type the decimal here, because if you're just typing a whole number first, it's going to fill the other ones with zeros, and you'll have to highlight that and remove and whatnot. Whatever. For the last two, it's going to transition between the mouth opening and the mouth shouting. Tube open stop for this next filter. We're going back to input peak true. With the peak true input meter types, this makes the transition more delayed. And we want that for the beginning and the end of this animation so that there's more anticipation in between all of that. Hopefully it'll show when I showcase it off. We're going to set the easing once again to 50. Source visibility for the action scene will be test scene as per usual. And for this one, it's going to be mouth opening because we're ending it. And the threshold action here will be disable over. And we're going to set the threshold here to be really high. So if we're holding a sound or we're screaming, then it should transition between this and the shout animation that we'll set up with our next filter. So for the last one, we're just going to do one more audio move filter. I'm going to call it VTube open shout. For the meter type, we're once again using input peak true. Set the easing to 50. Action, source visibility, scene, test scene, and the source will be VTube mouth shout. The threshold action will be enable over and disable under. And we're going to set it to the same threshold as VTube open stop, and I set it to 33. Okay, that should be good. And if we look over here, it looks like everything's working pretty well. Let's close and see if everything's working. And let's see, I'm going to shout, she sells seashells by the seashore. And look at that, it's all animated, working. It's all working very nicely. And yeah, this is just working just fine. It's perfect. All right, so for the filters, like I said before, your audio setup is most likely going to be very different from mine. So it's okay to mess with the easing if you want. Easing is more for animation. It's going to change how snappy the transitions will be. You can fiddle with these. If you make it higher, it'll make them more lax. If you make it lower, it'll be more snappy. You may want that, you might not, depending on your setup. But what is important to keep in mind is if you do mess with this value, make sure you make the same value for all the different filters. The easing should be the same for every single filter. Otherwise, let's just, for example, I'm going to change this to like 10 and this to 70 just to show off what happens. And as you can see some flickering. There's a slight bit of a delay. There's some slight overlap between here. That's what happens when you keep the easing at different values. They all should be the same. Let's go back and just adjust all these back to their original values. Okay, that's working nice and dandy. Okay. And as for the threshold values, these are more based on your mic input. If you're using a gain filter, or if you have your mic input set to be really loud, you may want to lower or decrease it or increase it based on all those factors. All you need to know is that the top two should have the same value, the middle two should have the same value, and the bottom two should have the same value. So just adjust those values as needed to fit your setup. And now that we've got our VTuber all set up, all we gotta do is add her to a scene. So I'm just going to go to this ad break scene over here I've got ready to go. All we gotta do now is go to add scene. We'll click scene here. Scroll down to our test scene. And bada bing, bada boom, she's ready to go. You can move her around. You can shrink her, you know, just like any other scene in OBS. Would you believe if I told you I didn't know you could actually put scenes within scenes in OBS just like a week ago? That's crazy, right? I have a lot to learn about this app. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video educational. Like and subscribe, all that good jazz. And if you happen to make a cool VTuber using this video, please let me know down in the comments. I would love to see it. And with that, I will see you all next time. I'll bid you all adieu. Bye-bye. What are you still around for? The video's over. Go click something else. Go home. Go back to your family, man. Go.